Hi, I'm Coach Hallis, and welcome to episode 21 of the Keeping It Real vlog. This is quarter three, week one, the first week of the new semester. We have a few things to talk about. One, I want to touch on something that applied to all of last semester, but I never got into it, and that is some of those pesky standards that don't quite fit into where your project design takes you. And whether you're starting with a project in mind that, man, if we can do this will be really interesting and engaging and kids will get a lot out of it, and then I have to go fit my standards into it. Or if you're starting from, here are my standards, what's a cool, engaging, and meaningful way that I can find to apply that in a way that students can get their hands on and really massage the material, if you will. Either way, there are going to be some standards that just kind of stick out and they aren't as conducive to what you're trying to do. So um, one of those in English 11 for Virginia was a lot of the things that deal with studying word origins and where words are derived from, things like that. The way that I fit those in, rather than having like a whole unit on that thing, is I would just use them as warm-up opportunities. So 5 minutes a day, let's talk about the origins of different words and things like that. So um, you can do bite-sized pieces, little grammar lessons and exercises. You can do those sorts of things for a few minutes a day instead of getting up and making it the cornerstone of your class being a lecture on grammar. You can do that, or having a whole unit devoted to certain things. You can do little bite-sized pieces of it frequently. And this semester, that's what I'll be doing with poetry analysis. We're going to be doing some reading of a contemporary poetry book, a narrative that uses poetic techniques called A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Excellent book. We'll read that like once or twice a week until we get through all of it. It's like 300 pages, but not a ton of words on each page. It's very visual poetry. So we'll be doing that like gradually and using that to cover some of the standards, along with, this is technically British literature, but we're not going to do projects about British literature. In fact, there are only a couple of standards in the whole curriculum that actually require you to, they actually even mention the word British. And one of those is comparing British literature and drama to that of other cultures. So we'll look at poems and excerpts of plays and things like that from different cultures during warm-ups. And we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll do a little bit. So most of what I have them doing for those, a couple times a week, they'll have a very short poem to read and kind of analyze, and then we'll talk about it, or they can write about it, or they put things in Google Classroom and jot things down that way. So that gets a lot of those things that just need to be covered, that especially when you are trying to exist in a traditional structure and offer something like project-based learning or deeper learning. You're trying to do these like more authentic, meaningful things, but you still have to cover these standards. That's ways you can do it. Our project launch took place this week. So we had two of the three animal control officers came to our school, and one of whom was the supervisor of animal control. They came and met with the students to talk to them about what their project is, or why they're doing their project. They came to talk about the why. They talked about what it is that they do. They spoke about some misconceptions of animal shelters. They touched on a number of the potential writing topics that the students would then choose from. And they just kind of gave them bite-sized bits of information, and then they talked about what they do with these dog houses once we donate them to them. So once the students had the why in mind, it solved any kind of lingering questions about why the hell am I building a doghouse in English class. Once they came, got the kids interested and understanding what kind of good they can do for their community, we're back into the classroom and we're figuring out some logistics. So this was the first time that I'm having them like really collaborate on something that they're all doing together, not just giving each other feedback. So they decided, I gave them, and you'll see it on the screen here, I gave them a number of colors to choose from. and these were based on either paints that were already left over, exterior paint that was left over, or that I was able to get for really like a discount rate, that because it happened to be like a misprinted color at Lowe's. So I had these 7 paints that I have plenty of, that there's going to be their base color. I thought about different ways of distributing this. One way I thought of was I'd just like make it random. I'd have them pull these like random things out of a hat essentially, and here's what you get. Now get creative. And then I decided to let them talk it over with each other, brains like casually kind of brainstorm what they might do with different colors as a base color, having to come up with some kind of theme that makes sense with that color, and then rank their priorities. And then I put their rankings on the whiteboard, and I let them figure out as a class, well, how are we going to decide who gets what color? And then we do the exact same thing with the articles. So the interesting thing here for me was that they picked the exact opposite, like to a T, of what I would have thought they wanted. So there's this fuchsia pink-ish color called Showstopper. That was one that was like, it was a misprinted color that I got for like 80% off at Lowe's. And I thought that would have been like the last one. So at 5 groups, there are 7 colors. I didn't think anyone was going to pick that. And there were 2 groups that had it as their number 1 choice, and another group that had it as their number 2 choice. So I let them figure out. We figured out colors first. I let them decide. And the way they worked it out, 3 groups got their number 1 choice and 2 groups got their number 2 choice, and they were all satisfied with that. The ones that I thought would have been really popular, which are basically red and blue, nobody wanted. They were like bottom choices. So I'm glad that I gave them that autonomy to have some impact. And then we'll also, when we have a little bit of time, we'll come back to this and we'll talk about the differences of ways that voting works in different systems. Even though I'm not a social studies teacher, it's a good opportunity to talk about, hey, you know how you guys picked your colors? How would that have looked if we had like a first past the post vote on something where there were only 2 options compared to you having many options and then ranking your systems? And we might compare like first past the post voting to ranked choice voting and different ways that voting can work. And so the same thing applied to their selection for the articles that they're going to work on together. There were 2 particular subjects. So proper care for outdoor pets, that was specifically requested by the animal shelter officers, and the importance of and reasons to spay and neuter pets, that was specifically requested. So those we had to get in. There was a situation, as you can see on the screen here, the only thing that affected was, we had 3 groups that wanted to write an article on things to know before getting a dog or cat. The reason that the group that got that as their number 1 choice is because they settled for their number 2 choice with the color. So that was an easy situation for us, and this is all like came out of discussions in the class. Then pretty much every other group either got their first or every other group got their first or second choice. We could have had one group get their first choice that got a second choice, and that was because nobody chose the importance of and reasons to spay and neuter pets as their first choice. But one group had it as their second choice, and that was a specific request from the shelter, so they happily said, yeah, we'll write on that. So interesting how we were able to come up with that, rather than like just as a teacher assigning that to them, giving them some autonomy and having them understand the purpose behind what they're doing and having them write something meaningful. Just think about this compared to if I gave them random writing prompts to teach them writing. So this is leading into next week. Their outlines are going to be due. And towards the end of the week here, we also got them working on sketches that I'll show you. So once they had their colors figured out, they sketched out outlines for what their design is going to look like when they paint these dog houses. And we started work on outlines for papers. So there's a real opportunity here for them to see some analogies between building out an essay or an article and building a physical product. So that's where we are here at the end of week 1, the first week of the new semester. See you next week.